And I think for a startup, it's basically moving from one stage. Like a startup is a very interesting experience because like your pains are different. Like you always have pain, you always have like a suffering, but like the pain is different in every stage. So now it's basically scaling and building like a larger organization, basically building a machine, process, system, etc.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. 20-Minute Leaders is a proud supporter of Make-A-Wish Israel and Tech to Peace, and is in proud collaboration with Secret Chord Ventures, J Ventures, Riverside FM, Fusion VC, Birthright Excel, J Impact, Leap, Google for Startups, and Hippo, and in media partnership with CTech. Omer Glass, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders, all the way from the GrowthSpace offices. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very, very much for being with me. Omer, I'm really excited to talk to you about, really at the end, it's people and they are professional beings and learning, team building, KPIs, how the independent person impacts an organization and this sort of this relationship building that is really interesting. And so running a very interesting company, GrowthSpace, I'm excited to dive into this world with you. So thank you very much for being with me, Omer.
Thank you so much. Excited.
How did you get into the world of professional building, talent, organizational productivity? How did you get into these worlds?
So I think it's like personal hobby or passion of mine. One of the best things we can do as humans is to grow eventually. So I think for me, every choice I made personally in my adult life or even as a kid was tied to how much will I grow eventually. So my first, when I went to my army service, I wanted to grow like there in specific elements. When I chose my first job after university, I basically didn't care how much you're going to pay me. I cared about like, what are they going to teach me? So I think it was a passion of mine, and I think it's one of the best things we do as humans eventually, because why are we here, right? You do not want to stay stagnant. You want to grow and become better in all aspects of life, right? In relationships and with your family and with work and with intellect and whatever your interests are. So we're a species that grows eventually.
Grow, yes, definitely. And you're right. I already like some of the philosophical questions, but we're not going to get into some of those today. But when we're looking at growth, paint me the landscape of the challenges around growth, because what you're talking about, while I believe every person listening here will agree, it's another thing that we can all agree on is that it's very much not a trivial task for any of us, right? For us amongst ourselves, for us as CEOs, for employees. What is the challenge behind growth?
So the basic challenge is behind growth is like that we're doing things, we're stretching ourselves, right? A lot of us are working in startups. So like you're expected to grow 2x, 3x, 4x, like in their earlier stages. So when you're trying to eventually grow companies and develop companies, it means that you will have stretch KPIs, right? And stretch deliveries, because if you're doing something that's very easy for you do not have to grow. You can just lean back, do your work, 9 to 5, drop the pen and go home. I think most of us in the current era are in the professional aspect, we're basically required to grow as a feature of the system, right? It's a bug or feature. So I think it's a feature that companies need to grow, which means they're like the companies are basically the sums of their people. So also people need to grow. And I think the interesting thing about growth, it's not identical for two like specific people. So you need to ask yourself, like, how can we grow them systematically as a company? And how can we tailor the right growth for each individual? Because think of like 5 of your managers, one will need to focus on their functional expertise. So I want you to improve your sales management tactics. One would like to focus on their managerial skills. One needs to improve their productivity, like how they organize their time, or even communication skills. How do you communicate upwards, right? So growth has a lot of different like arenas eventually. So we would like to find the right solution for each member in each company.
Okay. Key insights around, how to tailor that growth, to fine tune that growth, whether it be, individually or at scale. What were some of the key insights you've had along the way with GrowthSpace that allowed you to be successful thus far?
So I think the key insight about growth is that you first need to understand what is the outcome? What is the outcome in the organizational level, and what is the outcome in the individual level? So first, let's talk a bit about what GrowthSpace does in order to dive into how we're doing that. So just in high level, GrowthSpace helps companies to manage their human-to-human development. Why is that? Because in learning, you can learn things from YouTube or from online courses, but usually the impact happens when people help other people grow. With all the AI and ChatGPT, if we want to grow as humans, we want to learn from other humans. So the other humans can be people from within my organization, like can be internal, my mentor from my organization, or they can be people who are external to the organization. People who are trainers, like sales trainers or group facilitators or mentors, external mentors, like matching a VP sales in one company with a CRO from another company, or coaches. So different types of experts providing different types of growth. So basically GrowthSpace helps organizations to manage one-on-one programs with external experts when we can actually tailor the right expert for each individual growth path. It can be in small group, we call it team coaching. It can be workshops, think of management training, sales training, or it can be internal mentoring. So that's what GrowthSpace does. Now, how to understand what growth do you need? We basically first understand the individual, first we understand the organizational outcome. So you want to drive productivity, or do you want to reduce attrition, or do you want to build your promotable base? There are different outcomes that you as a CEO will be interested about. And then we basically derive individual plans for individuals, each one with their own outcomes that they're trying to achieve. And then we will do everything in a sprint setting. So usually it will be 5 sessions focused on one specific objective that you're trying to achieve in a very short period of time. So if we will go, let's say you're a manager and you're very centralized, you're not delegating to your people. So your productivity is hurt. So you want in 5 sessions to basically delegate more. So there will be very, very specific outcomes for the individual manager. And after 5 sessions, I want to see an actual improvement in the specific KPI.
So is this a classification problem or sort of like a matching problem between a desire plus personality to a training program you have? How do you even go about using technology to do that successfully at scale? Because I understand if you have some coach coming in and creating some personalized program, but obviously you're a tech company. How do you operate and create that impact at scale here?
Sure. So the first problem that you have, eventually what we do, I think it's an interesting space because up until COVID, 99% of the human-to-human development has happened face-to-face. So you didn't really have an access to a lot of different experts. You just had one expert close to your office that they will come in and kind of train everyone. But it's not one size fits all, and that's a problem. So I think the first thing that technology enables us is to really run it at scale. So if now, tomorrow morning, you will tell me, Omer, I want to onboard 10,000 people to your platform. Each one will get an individual expert focusing and specializing on what they actually need. It's almost an impossible task if you're a company, but with us, you can basically do that. So technology solves for a scale. That's number one. And you're right, it's a lot around classification, or we call it taxonomy and data, basically. Because the hardest thing in growth is to find the right expert that fit the right individual. There is a company called the World 50 in the US, and it's a very, very wide glove service, basically finding the perfect expert for like CEOs. It costs you like $60,000 or $100K, so it's super, super expensive, but they will find the right CEO mentor for every CEO in the world. So you're running a shipping company, they will find the right CEO in a shipping company that face similar challenges, right? But you cannot do it at scale. So basically the way it's built in GrowthSpace, it's built upon a taxonomy. So we basically mapped 3 levels of taxonomy. It's like you have high level focus areas like management, productivity, sales, and then you have skill sets, and then you have basically skills. So we have over 400 different types of skills. So eventually each expert will be tagged on the specific skills that they're good at, and they cannot do everything. They need to select from a very, very limited amount of skills, and it will also tag their background, where they came from, their industry. So eventually the data will help us to understand who is good in what, and then it's a rating mechanism, kind of like when you're buying things on like booking.com, for example.
Yeah.
How do you know if the hotel is good? If enough people rated it 9, right? That's how you look for hotel. Or in Amazon, when you're buying something. So it's the same when you're basically selecting the right experts.
And especially if people that are providing the ratings are similar to me in nature, right? I think that's a big step function that we've had in sort of personalized ratings, where now these platforms are offering these ratings, but based on individuals that are similar to us, whether it be in our body physique, if it's shopping for clothes, or whether it be, our personality for traveling based on our previous experiences. How do you measure the effectiveness? So how do you close the loop of knowing whether the program that you delivered or assigned was a successful one, both to the individual as well as the company?
So in the individual level, we basically ask both the individual and the direct manager about the outcome. So in the beginning of every process, whether it's one-on-one or a group, we will define an outcome that we want to achieve, a specific outcome tied to a specific skill. So delegation, you're now not delegating anything. I want you to start delegating 20% of the work, for example, and I want to see it happening within 2 months. After 2 months, I will come back both to the participant, the platform will come back both to the participant and the direct manager, and we will ask them whether the outcome has been achieved. Now, self-reporting is biased, so usually I can report, yes, I'm delegating much more, but I'm not really delegating. But my manager usually will have a better view on the actual change in my behavior. So that's the individual level. In the organizational level, like in the company level, we will usually either connect to their business KPIs or organizational KPIs. So it can be looking at the engineering throughput, engineering velocity, customer churn, sales conversions, really business KPIs. Or it can be organizational KPIs like attrition, again, promotions, stuff like that. Or we can use other tools like HR analytics, or even GrowthSpace platform enables you to basically measure the actual impact in the organizational level.
Okay, that makes sense. So I want to try this a little bit back to you now as to, why you're doing what you're doing. So take me again through sort of why do you care so much about growth? You care enough about it to run a company doing it? What is sort of your why here?
So first of all, I will not take credit for the idea. I did have a lot of I worked in this space, had another startup in this space over 10 years ago. But the idea came from my co-founder, one of my co-founders, Dan, when he just had a pain. And the company he worked for, a lot of people were leaving, and in the period that people were leaving because they didn't feel the company is investing enough in their growth. So we tried to find a solution, but no solution out there really like moved the needle. So eventually he came to me and he asked me like, how do you create effective development? And he called me because he knew I had some experience in this space. And I told him, nobody really know because no one really works with data in this industry. So that's basically the story of GrowthSpace. Personally, I think for me, first of all, I like to grow. So being a founder, and probably you can understand it as well. It's one of the most like you're growing every quarter in a crazy way. So it's really just being a startup founder is a very good growth experience. And specifically in helping other people grow, I think as people were looking for meaning and we want to do cool stuff in the world, and eventually we're spending so many hours in this thing called work. So for me, I really like to think that the energy I'm spending and a lot of people we're working with are spending is eventually helping other people grow.
How do you measure your own success around what you do? So how do you know you've succeeded personally?
So I can take it to like the philosophical, or I can take it to the business. So I think the business success is business success. Eventually, you have SaaS KPIs, you're managing to fundraise, you're growing the company, etc. But I think the more interesting aspect of success is basically personal ones. About like how equanimous you are through the process. It's a very stressful. So how come whether you can inspire people, whether you can help as a manager to grow your own people, where people I think one of the best metrics for a manager is if their subordinates were really successful after leaving the company. So I think for me it's eventually the personal growth that I'm saying, whoa, I couldn't do this specific thing 6 months ago, but now I kind of mastered that. And you have so many things to master. So I think it's very rewarding to just look back and see the path.
I can see the enjoyment in your eyes. So tell me a little bit about where GrowthSpace is now. We're in January of 2023.
So GrowthSpace is growing. I think we're in times of recessions. So I think this year we grew quite a bit, and it's we grew this year from 40 people to 100. So when you're growing,
just repeat those two numbers.
I'm sorry, we grew this year from 40 people to 100 people. So we grew basically 2.5x.
In 2020?
Yes.
During sort of the recession, as they call it.
Yes. So for us, we see that, again, even though there is a recession, companies are developing their managers and their talent populations even more than they used to. So it's kind of some companies really shrink their budgets, but especially larger companies are even investing more because it's a lot around productivity. And in recession, let's say you're even counting a cutting headcount, you still want to make the existing employees effective. So we see growth even in this time. And I think for a startup, it's basically moving from one stage. A startup is a very interesting experience because your pains are different. You always have pain. You always have a suffering, but the pain is different in every stage. So now it's basically scaling and building a larger organization, basically building a machine, process, system, etc.
That makes a lot of sense. And what's up ahead now for sort of the bigger vision of GrowthSpace? So if you had to look, for the sort of the mile run here, where are we headed?
So we are the first company in the learning and development space doing what we do, really managing the whole human to human development. Now, doing it right and doing it basically really, really good is kind of like it's a challenge of building basically 3 different companies, because I mentioned like we're doing internal mentoring, we're doing like external one-on-one development sprints, we're doing group. So a lot of different products basically in one company. So when you're asking me about my vision, it's just build the perfect experience for human-to-human growth for companies and individuals, and just making it better and better. So enabling more skills, more experts. Like we have over 1,600 experts currently. And last year we worked with people in 65 different countries. So it means that you need experts in more than 65 different countries. So this is just like a complicated operation of delivering different experiences in different parts of the world, in different skills. So a lot of metrics, one on the other. So if you ask me what is our growth, it's just to make it better and better and better. And this vision is big enough for everyone else.
Omer, thank you very much. This was an awesome episode. Thank you for joining me. Best of luck with GrowthSpace. I'll continue cheering from the side. And I really appreciate your time and energy. Thank you.
Thank you.